Ever wondered if your advertising dollar is really working for you? If your ad would have been here, you and more than 4 million people would be listening to it right now. Contact ads at xzoneradiotv.com.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Unwilling to be the government's deadly assassin, gifted psychic Kahara Mitchell went AWOL and ended up buried under rubble in the wake of a great tsunami. She regained consciousness far from Earth on the medical ship of a Daguerreonian intergalactic fleet. Has she been rescued or abducted by aliens? The Chalice of Carrie, Kahira O'Donnell's latest paranormal science fiction romance, is the passionate story of an Earth woman and her destined mates, twin kings from another galaxy. Kahara uses her gifts fighting alongside Lords Rom and Ra in a war that will determine the destiny of galaxies. The Chalice of Carrie by Kahira O'Donnell is now available at KahiraO'Donnell.com or at Amazon.com.
This is the X-Zone Radio TV show with Rob McConnell on the X-Zone Broadcast Network and our worldwide family of broadcast affiliates. If you have a question for Rob McConnell or his guest, or if you've had a paranormal experience, call toll-free 1-800-610-7035 extension 0 or email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, our one address is X-Zone Radio TV.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Another summer day has come and gone away from Paris or Rome, but I wanna go home. Maybe surrounded by a million people, I still feel all alone. Just wanna go home. Oh, I miss you, you know. And I've been keeping all the letters that I wrote to you, each one a line or two. I'm fine, baby, how are you? Well, I would send them, but I know.
Welcome to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell, and for the next 4 hours, I'm your host and your guide as together we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X-Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And we're coming to you live from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. It's minus 32 degrees outside our studios right now. In Winnipeg, Manitoba, it's minus 52 degrees. In fact, it is colder in many parts of the United States and Canada than it is, believe it or not, according to NASA, on Mars. And yet, the surprising and the sad fact is, tonight and every other night, whether it's freezing temperatures, whether it's raining, whether it's snowing, Whether it's in the middle of the heat of the high summer temperatures, there are people in every major city, in every community, no matter where you go in Canada, the United States, Great Britain, you name it, there are homeless people. Well, my guest today is J.S. Levy. We're talking to Jay about his book entitled Pre-Treatment Guide for Homeless Outreach and Housing First. And Jay has spent the last 25 years working with individuals who experience homelessness. He is the author of the newly published book, Pre-Treatment for the Homeless Outreach and Housing First, helping couples, youth, and unaccompanied adults, as well as the highly acclaimed book, Homeless Narratives, and Pre-Treatment Pathways from Words to Housing. Jay has also published a monograph and several journal articles on homelessness issues, and he's now joining us. And Jay, first of all, to you and the people who you work with and other organizations around the world, God bless you for the great work that you're doing. And are we getting any closer, Jay, in your opinion, to getting everyone a home?
Well, it's an interesting and at the same time very challenging and difficult issue. First of all, thanks for having me on the show today. It's a pleasure to be here and to be on the radio and in a warm place where people care, as opposed to being out there on the streets and in the cold. There's already a number of people who have died out there during this very cold spell that everyone is so painfully aware of right now. So we're out there doing our best on a day-to-day basis, doing the outreach and meeting people, one at a time, and trying to get them in from the cold into safety. There has been across the United States and to some degree in Canada as well, a movement called Housing First, and it's been an exciting change in terms of the philosophy of helping people who are out there. And it really is about trying to get people into homes as quickly as possible and building support services around them.
Why is homelessness and the plight of the needy such a dirty secret in today's society? Why don't we just admit it's there and work for a common cause, work for a common goal, get these people into homes, feed them, for goodness sake, clothe them, get them jobs? What is wrong with society?
Yeah, it's really mind-boggling when you think about it, because when it comes to lots of issues, whether it's mental illness, whether it's addiction, whether it's people without home, we tend to cast that aside and not take these folks in the serious kind of manner and approach that really needs to be done. I think it must on some level connect to our own vulnerability and in part perhaps to the myth of kind of capitalist society, that it's up to the individual to move forward and take care of oneself, and we don't really want to be reminded that many of us are a paycheck away from being homeless and vulnerable.
Jay, you and I have to take a commercial break. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Whatever happened to I am my brother's keeper? I'll be back. Don't go away.
Keeping all the letters.
What if Jesus came back now and insisted that we listen to him? How would the world be different if Christians really followed the Gospels? For 2,000 years, we've been practicing a religion. Now it's finally time to get it right. Read Liberating Jesus, new from Roberta Grimes. Meet the Jesus you never knew. Roberta uses afterlife evidence and biblical analysis to prove that Jesus is exactly right. Learning the lessons that he came to teach is the reason we are born at all. Roberta says he has come back now to insist that we actually listen to him, so we can begin to use his teachings to unite and transform the world. Liberating Jesus on Amazon, October 1st, and then wherever books are sold. Jesus has the answers, and it's not too late. Roberta blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Call him Reef. Reef is your host. Reef is your guide. Are you happy? Happiness is like trying to find water in the desert. Can you find any?
Sometimes, sure, but only a few drops. God is an ocean of joy, but God is not cheap. You cannot find God in a chemical. You must attract God's attention. How? Not by living to please your senses. That is false ego. The Matrix is not real. It is a computer-enhanced hallucination. You are spirit soul, not the body. We have forgotten how splendid our home really is, the spiritual sky. For more information, visit rishasongofblue.com. That's www.reessongofblue.com.
Fartlets, fartlings, pongies, and honkers. They have so many names, makes you go bonkers. Rear tempest, butt bubbles, bottom burps, all aside. Why does it smell like a little rat died? Hail the fart, whenever, wherever, whoever. Its existence actually enriches our lives because it gives us those unforgettable moments that we can all recall again and again that are always good for yet another laugh. A new expose on farting. Get your copy of The Endearing Fart by Eileen Dover at www.theendearingfart.com.
I'm sitting in the railway station, got a ticket for my destination. On a tour of one-night stands, my suitcase and guitar in hand, and every stop is neatly planned for a poet and a one-man band. Homeward bound, I wish I was homeward bound. Home, where my thoughts escaping, home, where my music's playing, home, where my love lies waiting silently for me.
Homeward Bound by Simon and Garfunkel. The odds are that everyone listening to this show tonight, around the world, or sometimes some part of the world it's during the daytime, are going home tonight. Or they're at home. But for many, many, many people, they don't have a home to go to. They don't have a job. They don't have proper clothing. They are, for some reason, and this is a reason I have never understood as a broadcaster, a journalist, a police officer, why do we as a society not give a damn, Jay? And I've seen children homeless. I've seen teenagers homeless. I've seen middle-aged people homeless. I've seen senior citizens homeless. And it really irks me, Jay, when there are so many buildings that are owned by municipal, federal, state governments that are just sitting there doing nothing, where, in my opinion, they can be converted into homes, temporary homes, until we can get these people back on their feet. It seems that, in my opinion, Jay, we're doing everything backwards instead of going forwards.
Well, I think that's been, true for many years. The shelters themselves have become real kind of warehouses for people without homes,
Yeah.
and it hasn't really been treated as a triage kind of situation. They talk about emergency shelters,
Yeah.
and instead they've turned into these like locations where people just sort of sit there and not much happens. And so what there really needs to be a change, and it has been slowly happening. I want to underline the word slowly,
Sure.
but there has been some progress in some places, and I can give you some of the numbers on
Please
that.
do.
But what we've seen is, like I said, more of a push toward housing first, and more of a push toward looking at how to, when people first enter shelter, to be meeting with them right away and working on that kind of thorny problem of not having a home, not having enough income, and how to get these folks the support that they need, and assessing each person quickly and getting the services and the housing to them. Now, that being said, there's not enough resources, not enough money. It is underfunded. Where there has been progress has been with homeless veterans, for instance. There's been a great deal of money over the past year, couple years actually, going toward homeless veterans, trying to help them. And that's been the VASH program, which is Veterans Affairs Supportive Housing Program. And it puts together affordable housing plus support service and targets veterans directly.
Yeah, but is that the government's way of kind of pacifying their own guilt? Because no disrespect to the men and women who volunteer to protect us in our democracy, but when I see homeless children, they have the same rights and they have the same God-given freedoms as the vets do, that they too should have homes. It's, I can't see governments
absolutely.
funneling to one agency and not to the other. That just burns me.
Yeah, well, that was one example. I mean, there's also been a reduction in the chronically homeless folks across the U.S. with this kind of housing first model I've been talking about,
Right.
and the unsheltered homeless as well. Now, when I say it's getting better, I'm not saying it's happening quick enough.
Right.
I mean, on a yearly basis across the U.S., there's 1.5 million people seeking shelter annually. I mean, we know that from the annual counts that are done. And on any given day in the U.S., there's over 600,000 people homeless. In other words, like right now as we speak, there's 600,000 people or more, 600,000 that we know of, without homes that are in need of help. And so, you're right to say, hey, look, there's 25% of the homeless are children. So, it is a crime. You have these people who, deserve better, who need better. And ultimately, we all pay a price when we're not there to help with a home and the services needed, because what happens in the end is folks end up struggling, they're impoverished, they end up getting sick, they're more prone to illness, the kids don't do as well in school, they become economically challenged down the line and in the future, there's high rates of trauma. It affects all of society, so
Sure
it's
does.
really in our best interest to have a coherent and good and targeted policy to do this. And there is a lot of talk on the government level, both in Canada and in the U.S., but unfortunately the money and the resources haven't really been there as effectively as they need to be
When
action.
When it comes to the government, any government anywhere in the world, talk is cheap. They tell the population and the electorate exactly what they want to hear. They want to get elected. They have homes to go to at night. They have cars. They have a good education. They've got a great health plan. They eat well. And I've said this many times, Jay, that if I was president of the United States or prime minister of Canada, what I would do is, number one, I would cancel the space program. Take care of the people on this planet first. Once you've accomplished that, then go into outer space. There are so many foolish, stupid, idiotic programs that governments, corporations, and individuals are involved with, that if they were to funnel their energy, their finances, and their resources into solving these problems that affect 1.5 million Americans and I don't know how many hundreds of thousands Canadians. I think the last count was 266,000 homeless Canadians. Make sure they have a home. Make sure they have clothing and all the other basic sociological needs. They don't understand, or they do, and they just neglect the fact that, as you were saying, number one, it would decrease the financial drain on the medical society and the medical systems that we have. Because if people are homeless, they get sick, they go to the hospitals, and then society has to pick up the tab because they can't afford medical care. They can't afford medicine. So why is it that you and I can see this problem, you and I work at making this problem go away, and the people who have the money, the resources, and the power to make this happen don't?
Yeah, I wish I had a simple answer for that, and I don't. I mean, I think that, there is a for-profit motive that's out there, and I think that colors a lot of things in people's thinking. And And so, there's an issue when you look at kind of governments and people taking care of the folks that are already the folks, either with the money or with the opportunity, as opposed to reaching out to the folks who are, truly in need and impoverished. But I do think in the end it all kind of boomerangs back and affects all of us.
Sure it does.
If we want a better society, it's really in the long-term interests of the people in power to put the money, where their mouth is
Sure.
in terms of the rhetoric.
Tell me, Jay, what's your story? How did you get involved doing the great work you're doing?
Well, I really began, I'd say, back in the 1980s, so we're going back quite some time. And I remember I lived in New York City, really out in Brooklyn, and would travel into New York each day. And I would carry with me $1 and change and give it out to the people that were in need and obviously homeless and on the streets. And it kind of dawned on me as I was doing that, this is kind of the, a dilemma that I think a lot of people face that give out money to folks that they don't know. You kind of wonder where the money is going, how it's being spent. Is it really helping the person or not? And it dawned on me that it would be interesting to really learn about people's worlds and lives and hear their stories and really think about how we can help them in a more effective and targeted way. And that made me get interested in social work, and I went to Columbia University, went to school there, and started doing homeless outreach. And it was really during the time of the kind of explosion of homelessness in the U.S., which was in the 80s. I mean, you had, after the inpatient hospitals were closing, psych hospitals, during the 60s, you had some increases for people with severe mental illness hitting the streets. But in the 80s, with the crack epidemic and HIV/AIDS, and it seemed like an increase in runaway youth and all sorts of things going on. We started to see just homelessness everywhere. On every subway cart, you'd see someone who's homeless, and so it was just in my consciousness. It was right on the doorstep in Brooklyn where I lived. I'd see people who were homeless, and so it made me interested, and I started working with the Manhattan Bowery Corporation, and we used to have kind of not a nice term, but we used to call folks who were homeless years and years ago. I didn't, but others did. Bowery bums.
Yeah, the Bowery Boys. I remember that.
Yeah, and so the Manhattan Bowery Corporation was one of the first nonprofits that was out there in New York City working in the Bowery, and they worked with the flop houses and the local detox and did outreach to back then, which was known as people who were drunk and homeless.
Right.
But that's really changed over the years, the face of homelessness, and it's just such a variety of populations and people that are out there from really all walks of life. So I found it very interesting doing the outreach, meeting people, getting to know where they are, where they come from, kind of their words, ideas, values, and to offer help in a meaningful way that they could kind of hear and make some decisions for themselves on how to move forward.
You come around Christmas time, you've always got these different organizations that have their door open for Christmas donations. But what people do not realize is that there are hungry people, homeless people all year long. And it seems that come Christmas, the hearts and the wallets open up. But I just wish to heaven that people would remember that, number one, that people are hungry and homeless all year round. They can use their support, whether it's money, food, clothing, whatever you can do to help. Be part of the solution instead of being part of the problem. And when it comes to different religious organizations, I wish, once again, I wish a lot of things in life, and I do my very best to try and make a change each day. If you're a Catholic or if you're a Christian, Christ was homeless when he was born. And I think that people don't see the connections. And if they do, they don't like connecting the dots, because I think there's a lot of shame that goes along with being arrogant and playing the ostrich and keeping your head in the sand when problems arise. Or they're presented to you right in front of you. Jay, you and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news. Don't go away.
Ever wondered if your advertising dollar is really working for you? If your ad would have been here, you and more than 4 million people would be listening to it right now. Contact ads at xzoneradiotv.com.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
This is the X-Zone Radio TV show with Rob McConnell on the X-Zone Broadcast Network and our worldwide family of broadcast affiliates. If you have a question for Rob McConnell or his guest, or if you've had a paranormal experience, call toll-free 1-800-610-7035 extension 0 or email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, our one address is X-Zone Radio TV.
Something in your eyes makes me wanna lose myself. Makes me wanna lose myself in your arms. There's something in your voice that makes my heart beat fast. Hope this feeling lasts the rest of my life. If you knew how lonely my life has been, and how long I've been so alone. And if you someone to come along and change my life the way you've done. It feels like home to me. It feels like home to me.
Welcome back, everyone. J.S. Levy is our special guest. He is the author of Pre-Treatment Guide for Homeless Outreach and Housing First. His website is www.jslevy.com. Jay, can you share with us what exactly your work with PATH program is and what PATH does?
Okay, well, PATH is an acronym that stands for Projects Assisting Transitions from Homelessness It gets both federal and state funds. My company's named Elliott CHS, and it's a private nonprofit company. And we employ outreach workers that go out to the shelters, to the streets, to the parks, and basically connect with people on a one-on-one basis, form the trusting relationships that's necessary to move things forward. And we really work on connecting with people in terms of understanding where they're coming from, what they need, assessing in terms of mental health issues, medical issues, addiction issues, but also, of course, looking at housing as the main thing that folks need. So we're really based on trying to match people to the appropriate kind of housing and support service that'll help move things forward. And our focus is on mental health concerns, but we work with a variety of folks. And it's all primarily folks who are unaccompanied adults and living on the shelters or on the streets.
Jay, I was wondering if you could tell us what some of the main causes of today's homelessness are.
Well, of course, there's the economic drivers to homelessness, which is key. So I never want to underestimate the influence of that. And so, joblessness or just not getting pay at a level that's sustainable to keep people in housing. So the need for livable wages or livable income is really paramount, very important. Housing costs are through the roof in some places. So having affordable housing is needed, and the lack of affordable housing is a major cause. What we see over time also, though, is there's people out there who are fleeing abuse, trauma. So you have people from domestic violence trying to be safe, and some of those folks end up homeless. You have youth that have been either leaving foster care because they've aged out, or runaway youth. There's a very high amount of people from the LGBT population, people who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgendered, who are not feeling accepted or perhaps even feel abused in terms of where they're living, and therefore they kind of take off and hit the streets at an early age. There's been studies to show that of the homeless youth population, 20 to 30% fall within this kind of LGBT realm. You got veterans returning home from war that we talked a little bit about, and many of them have sustained head injuries or perhaps have a post-traumatic stress disorder, and so are really struggling with that and are on the streets. You got people, natural disaster victims, from earthquakes and hurricanes and floods and things like that, who end up homeless and are in need of emergency help. And then you have, among the long-term homeless, people who are out there either episodically or for a year or more and are continuously homeless. You see high rates of mental illness and addiction and medical issues as well. So, and then you have homeless families, of course, which 25% of the homeless are children. So there's a lot of various causes. A lot of it's economic drivers, but the longer people are out there, the more evident it becomes that you're also folks struggling with mental health concerns and addiction and major medical issues as well.
Tell me, when it comes to new Americans, people who immigrate to the United States, what percentage of these new Americans end up being homeless?
You know what? I think it's a fairly low percentage when you talk about literal homelessness. That means people on the streets or people in shelters. You don't really see a lot of that. I mean, we do outreach. I could say across Massachusetts, which I think is pretty friendly to new Americans overall in terms of if you were to compare it to some other states. We don't see too many immigrants or people who would be considered illegal or what have you on our caseloads. Of course, a lot of those folks don't want to be identified.
That's right. They want to stay under the radar.
Right. So it makes it a little harder to really get those numbers, and there's no real good counts on that. When you hear about all the homeless stats and all that, I've never seen a number that connects to new Americans or illegal immigrants.
But let me ask you this, as a person who is in the field, Why is it that the number of immigrated, American immigrants and Canadian immigrants are so low compared to the naturalized or the people who are born here?
Why are they so low in terms of
homelessness?
homelessness?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I think part of it is connected to, like I said, that they're trying to stay under the radar.
No,
So
I'm talking about legal immigration. I'm not talking about illegal immigration.
So in terms of the homeless population, I don't know. I would think the people that are coming in that are legally immigrating maybe are setting up in advance more of a support system. There's some things when you're legally immigrating in. There's some support services and things like that people can connect to. They might have family connections. So I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that.
All right. I was just wondering.
Might have more of a supportive community that they're connecting into.
So, in your opinion, are homeless shelters an effective way of serving people without homes? And if not, what can be done to make them better?
Yeah, well, homeless shelters are, like I said, are kind of a way of serving folks where they've been warehoused for the most part. So it's a way of really giving a blessing to chronic homelessness, unless you really change the whole shelter system where it becomes more of a triage, where you're meeting people right away and really trying to resolve the problem of people without homes and how are we going to match them to the affordable housing placement as well as the income that they need to sustain it, and of course the support services for those who need extra support. So that's being done in some areas. In Massachusetts and Central Mass, I've been involved with a particular shelter out there that takes this kind of triage approach, and they've been able to really greatly reduce the chronic homeless numbers. The overall homeless numbers are still pretty high because you have kind of the economics of the situation, very high unemployment right now. As you know, the economy has been really tough on everybody. And so, in terms of short-term homelessness, which is about 80% of the people that end up homeless and going through shelters, more short-term. So for those folks, you need to have maybe some funds available and some good job programs and ways of connecting people to employment, as well as maybe getting them some quick funds that will help with maybe initial monies to help get them housed and get that first month's rent paid. But in terms of the folks that are out there longer term, it's a more complicated approach where you need a lot more support service and you need more kind of targeted funds and outreach workers that can really connect people to treatment type services as well as the housing, as well as the supports.
Tell me about your book. Why did you write it, and what is your goal as an author?
Well, I have 2 books out, as you mentioned earlier, and really both are about telling the stories of people who are out there. I think we can learn so much by just understanding the individual stories and the different reasons a person is homeless and how they kind of look at their world. And there's an old saying, it says to reach out to the poor, and you'd be surprised when you do that how much you get out of it personally. And I think the stories in my books of people I've met, whether it's out on the streets in New York City or whether it was in the shelters in Boston or out in the woods in Western Mass, it's really amazing to hear these stories of survival and overcoming and how outreach can make a real difference in people's lives. And I also provide a method toward helping. I call it a pre-treatment model. It's based on 5 basic universal principles toward how to reach out to people and build the relationships and work on a common language, and from there to help support transitions and to promote safety, and ultimately to support people through the process of change so that they can have a better life. So I feel good in offering that model out to people, to other outreach workers, but also to concerned, citizens that just want to hear these different stories and know about homelessness from kind of the inside out, and really are open to, learning from others as well as being able to maybe use some of the lessons from these stories in their own lives to reach some of the vulnerable people they might know in their own families, neighbors, or what have you.
Let me ask you this. After all the people that you've had the occasion to speak to over the years and work with who are homeless, and based on your book that talks about these, and that you've had people tell you their stories, what is the life or what is the world of a homeless person like?
Yeah, well, it's really interesting because on the one level, there's just the day-to-day survival and kind of what we call the immediacy needs of,
right,
shelter and just struggling to get by. Think of anyone that's been unemployed for a period of time, and what happens to your psyche over time if you're unable to continue to find employment. It gets very hard to get up in the morning and keep striving, for that next interview, and to be confident and to feel like you can be successful. So we meet a lot of people that are really, downtrodden, that are feeling kind of helpless. But at the same time, there's something about the human mind which is amazing, which is the kind of the meaning-making process. So what I like to say is, as human beings, we're all meaning makers. We have a story to tell. We have a certain set of values that connects us to the world around us. And, for instance, I met a guy named Ray. He called himself Old Man Ray because he was in his 60s. He was a World War II veteran. This was out in the 80s. He was living at the Port Authority in New York City, and I talk about this in my first book, Homeless Narratives and Pre-Treatment Pathways. And what was really just amazing about his story is he saw himself as the night watchman at the Port Authority. So you had a guy who was 67 years old, without a home. Really, on the one hand, you'd think he'd be helpless, but when I approached him and tried to help, he kind of turned to me and he wanted to give me advice. He saw himself as kind of being an information center, someone who was sort of a protector of the Port Authority, knew all the things that were going on, saw himself in charge. And this is the way people often deal with trauma in their lives. There was a gentleman by the name of Viktor E. Frankl. He wrote the book Man's Search for Meaning. And he says that, it's a great quote, he says, despair is suffering without meaning. And so rather than kind of experience the despair that homelessness can bring, instead we meet these folks that are really able to create these amazing worlds and find a sense of control within it often. And as the outreach worker, the key is, and this is why I like telling these stories to really show this process, is to connect to people's meanings and to be able to then work off of that, their values, and then connect that to a road where they can have a better life so that they can embrace the choices that we're giving them. Because the average person that you approach when they're homeless and you try to give them some options and talk about things they can do to make their life better, if they don't trust you or if they think you're coming from an authority kind of place, they're going to refuse to help. And they might even be very angry at you. And as a result, there's kind of this myth that's out there that there's a lot of people who are homeless that don't want help. But it's really not true. If you get to know people and you build the trusting relationship and you use a kind of common language that the person can connect to, you'd be surprised. Almost everybody is saying, yes, I'd like some help, and if you can assist me with a pathway forward out of this, I'll go down that road.
Jay, stand by. You and I have to take our final break. Exxon Nation, J.S. Levy is our special guest. www.jslevy.com. And we're talking about homelessness. Now, no matter where you are listening to me on this beautiful planet of ours, be part of a solution instead of part of a problem. Help where you can, if you can. Food, money, clothing, whatever. We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break. Don't go away.
Born a Shiite Muslim and taught the Quran in his youth are some of the reasons why President Obama has an affinity for Islam and the Muslim people. His nuclear deal with Iran allows them to obtain over $150 billion to stimulate their country domestically and militarily while pursuing their objective to develop a nuclear bomb. A groundbreaking article by Nicholas Jennings titled, "Obama Continues to Lie to the American People," exposes many lies Obama has made. It includes lies to the American people on the Obama-Iran nuclear deal and Benghazi.
The Genix article is provided on the internet link www.rel-mar.com/NG2. That's www.rel-mar.com/NG2.
When demystified, shamanism is an ancient science delving into the quantum level of life. Understanding and implementing basic shamanic principles can empower the individual to heal, manifest, and evolve in these rapidly changing times. Path Home Shamanic Art School is a one-of-a-kind Colorado State certified occupational school training and certifying shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also train individuals simply interested in empowering and enriching their lives through shamanism. Path Home's certification classes are in a week-long block format, enabling national and international students to participate. We also provide online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions as well. Discover all you can be. Enter the limitless world of shamanism today. For more information, visit findyourpathhome.com or call 303-775-3431.
Ever wondered if your advertising dollar is really working for you? If your ad would have been here, you and more than 4 million people would be listening to it right now. Contact ads@xzoneradiotv.com.
You're my love, you're my angel, you're the girl of my brain. I thank you, oh baby, for waiting patiently. Daddy's home to stay.
Exo Nation, J.S. Levy is our special guest. His website is www.jslevy.com. That's www.jayslevy.com. First of all, Jay, I want to thank you so much for joining us. What would you like to tell the Exo Nation tonight? Now, you're talking to a worldwide audience, so here's your best venue, your best opportunity for getting a message across.
Well, I mean, let me just say that I think the most important thing we can do in the end is to really connect with somebody and build an authentic, trusting relationship with others who are in need. You'd be surprised how healing relationships can be. It really makes a difference in people's lives. And like I said, the pre-treatment guide that I talk about in the book is really the fundamentals of how to do that really, really well. So, you know, in the end, so much just comes down to the connections we have with people as opposed to ignoring folks. And I think if we start with the caring and the connection, a lot of good policy, a lot of good everything else will kind of drive from there.
Jay, have you heard any or have any horror stories ever been relayed to you about people who have gone out and tried to work with the people who are homeless, gain their trust, and it's backfired on them?
Well, look, that does happen. I've read stories of outreach workers who have been murdered. Things like that does happen. So there's a risk to everything in life. But I don't think it's something that's really all that worrisome, because what I found, and I've been doing this for many years. I did outreach myself for over 20 years, and I currently oversee 14 outreach workers that are out there. Yes,
but you're a professional. You went to school for this. But I mean,
I see what you're saying.
But what I'm saying is, we were talking about what we can do to help. Doesn't law enforcement strongly suggest that you leave this to the professionals?
Well, I think you're right that there's people that, in their quest to save others, sometimes go out there and they don't really know what they're getting into.
Exactly.
They're not very boundary. They might invite someone they don't know very well, like off the streets, to their home, and then all of a sudden they're having trouble on how do you get the person out? How do you get? And it might be someone who has either a major mental illness or an addiction that's active, or there are some people out there that are antisocial, that have long criminal records, that are out on the streets. One of the causes to homelessness that we didn't talk about in too much detail is institutional discharges, and that includes discharges from the jails and the prisons. So you do get an element out there that can be, dangerous. And you're right that, it does. If you're going to take someone into your home, that's very risky, and I wouldn't recommend that to anyone. That you just kind of go out there and try to solve homelessness on your own by, inviting people in. But I do recommend that to say hello to people on the street who are homeless in your neighborhood that you're seeing on a regular basis, to know people's names, to give them maybe some information on resources that are out there, where the soup kitchens are or where outreach workers are.
Hey, Jay, I hate to do this, but our time is up for tonight. I want to thank you so much for joining us, and God bless you for the work you do, the work that your other outreach people do, and other people like you around the world. You're making this a better place to live, one person at a time. Exonation, www.jslevy.com. J.S. Levy has been my guest, and we'll be back on the other side of the news. Don't go away.